Welcome to the History Stories podcast.
We're glad you could join us.
Get ready for an exciting historic road trip. We're diving into a truly wild story straight from history.
Oh, absolutely wild.
You sent in your requests. You were intrigued by these tales of lost explorers, hidden civilizations, all that stuff.
And we listened.
So we've gathered the history books and uncovered sources to take you deep into this legend, baked in the Amazonian sun. Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett and his obsession with the lost city of Z.
Yeah, our mission on this historic road trip is really to understand what drove this guy, Fawcett, what actually happened on that final expedition.
And why are we still talking about it nearly a century later?
Exactly. We'll explore the facts, well, the known facts anyway, and the compelling theories and sort of the lasting impact of this really enigmatic disappearance.
Think of this as your shortcut, your quick guide to understanding a truly legendary tale of adventure and mystery.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Picture it. Late May 1925. In the Mato Grosso region of Brazil, it's humid. I mean, stiflingly humid. And just filled with insects. You can almost, feel the sweat, hear the buzzing just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's almost impossible for us now to really imagine that level of isolation, those constant threats. You can see why preparation would be absolutely critical.
Bear 'em out.
But even that sometimes wasn't enough, right?
Not in that environment, no.
And into this green hell, as it was called, marches Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, intrepid. That word doesn't even begin to cover it.
Not really.
He's part Victorian explorer, all grit and determination, but also maybe a bit of a mystical dreamer. That's what I gather.
Yeah, there was definitely that side to him. And his goal, this lost city he called Z, he was convinced it was a remnant of some ancient, incredibly sophisticated civilization, maybe like you hinted, even connected to Atlantis.
Atlantis, wow. But what's fascinating here, as you said, Fawcett wasn't just some, naive guy wandering into the jungle.
No. He had serious experience. Years and years mapping borders for the Royal Geographical Society. This guy endured unbelievable hardships.
Right.
But this quest for Z, it really seems like it became an obsession for him.
Fueled by what exactly?
Well, partly by this cryptic Portuguese document, Manuscript 512.
Manuscript 512, okay.
And also all these whispers and local legends he'd heard about strange pottery finds, ruins hidden deep in the jungle, stuff like that.
And this final expedition, it wasn't just him setting off alone, was it?
No. He took his eldest son, Jack Fawcett, who's apparently very keen, up for the adventure.
Like father, like son.
Seems so. And Jack's friend, a young man named Raleigh Rimmel.
Rimmel. He sounds like he was enthusiastic, which is good, but maybe not quite as seasoned for this kind of deep jungle trek. Is that fair?
That's a crucial point, I think. Preparation and maybe sheer physical and mental resilience is just everything in that environment.
So the last time anyone heard from them definitively?
It was a dispatch.
Yeah.
A letter from Fawcett to his wife, Nina, dated May 29th, 1925. They were at a place he called Dead Horse Camp.
Dead Horse Camp? Why the grim name?
Well, because his horse had died there at a previous trip. A detail that.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels a bit ominous in retrospect, doesn't it?
It really does. Do we know where that was?
We have the coordinates, roughly.
Yeah.
11 degrees, 43 minutes south, and 54 degrees, 35 minutes west.
And he sounded so confident in that last message, right? I remember reading that.
Totally confident. He said they'd crossed the upper Xingu River, a major tributary of the Amazon, and were heading into completely unexplored territory.
And that famous line.
Yeah. You need have no fear of any failure. Almost heartbreaking to read now.
It really is, because after that message...
Silence.
Yes.
Complete and utter silence.
Nothing.
And what's really striking, what makes this different maybe from other lost explorers, is the total lack of any trace. No bodies, no campsite that could be definitively identified as theirs, no journals found later, no equipment turning up, not even a desperate message carved into a tree.
Wow.
They just vanished.
Vanished, like they were literally swallowed by the jungle itself.
Pretty much sums it up.
And that's the core of this historic road trip, isn't it? WTF happened after May 29th, 1925, from that last known point.
Exactly. Everything else we're going to talk about now is, well, it's speculation, it's theory, all colored by this central, undeniable fact of their disappearance.
So, thinking about why we're still fascinated, why does this story continue to hold such a grip, do you think?
That's a great question. And I think to really get it, we need to step back. Look at the world Fawcett lived in.
Okay.
We're talking early 20th century. Huge parts of the map were literally still blank,
Right.
especially the Amazon,
Right, the green hell.
or the Heart of Darkness, as some called it. It was seen as this incredibly mysterious, dangerous place full of potential riches. The old El Dorado myths were still floating around.
Still searching for gold.
Yeah, but also teeming with completely unknown threats. For people back then, the unknown wasn't just a gap on a map, it was. It was a screen they projected their wildest hopes and fears onto.
And Fawcett, he steps right into that image, doesn't he? He becomes part of this heroic age of exploration.
Absolutely. Alongside names we still know, like Shackleton and Scott, these larger-than-life figures pushing the boundaries of the known world.
It's hard for us to grasp now, maybe, with satellite images and Google Maps.
Totally different world.
But back then, these guys were like rock stars almost.
They really were. And think about the timing. Post-World War I. The world was shattered. I think people were desperate for escapism, for romantic adventure, for stories of bravery in far-off lands.
So when Fawcett goes missing.
It becomes an instant international sensation. Headlines screaming across the globe.
But did they think happened?
All sorts of things. Were they captured by savages, as they'd say then? Had they actually found this incredible lost city and couldn't get word out? The Royal Geographical Society, which had, backed some of his earlier trips, was suddenly in the middle of this massive public mystery.
And his wife, Nina.
Her unwavering hope for years and years that they were still alive somewhere. That just fueled even more speculation, more romantic ideas.
But then you had the other side, right? The debunkers, the realists.
Oh, yeah. People saying, come on, folks. This is the Amazon rainforest. What do you think happened? Pointing to the brutal realities. Disease, starvation, getting lost, potentially hostile tribes. It's obvious,
Yeah,
later you.
so that tension, the brutal reality versus this romantic quest.
Precisely. And that tension is a big part of why the legend lasts. Today, the Lost City of Z isn't really about finding a specific spot on a map anymore.
It's more symbolic.
Exactly. It's become this powerful cultural myth. It represents the allure of the unknown, our fascination with lost civilizations, and maybe the dark side of obsession, too.
Which, as you mentioned, connects directly back to why we're doing this historic road trip, why we're drawn to these historical mysteries, trying to understand the human condition, the what-ifs, and the whys.
Couldn't have put it better.
So we're left with this chilling silence after May 29th. Given the environment, the times, there are some pretty straightforward explanations. But then the mystery really deepens when we consider some of the more, imaginative possibilities.
Right.
Where did they go? This is where our historic road trip really takes a turn into the unknown, maybe into the weeds a bit.
Absolutely. And that's where the speculation just explodes, trying to fill that huge gap in information. We've got a whole spectrum of theories, really, from the pretty straightforward, almost mundane.
Mundane, but maybe most likely.
Probably, to the completely wildly out there. Let's maybe start with what are generally considered the most likely scenarios.
Okay, the mundane ones first. Grim, maybe, but plausible. Top of the list has to be killed by indigenous peoples.
Yeah, this is widely seen as the leading theory. David Grann's book, The Lost City of Z, his investigation really points strongly in this direction.
Why? What's the evidence?
Well, the region was inhabited by various tribes. Many, quite understandably, were extremely wary of outsiders encroaching on their territory. Even with Fawcett's experience trying to make peaceful contact, there's always a massive risk of trespassing, breaking some unknown custom, a simple misunderstanding escalating, or just a defensive reaction. They're protecting their homes.
But given Fawcett's experience, he wasn't naive about that, surely. Wouldn't he have been incredibly cautious? What might have gone wrong this time?
That's the question, isn't it? Maybe they were weakened. Maybe they stumbled into the wrong area at the wrong time. Maybe they encountered a group he hadn't met before, one less receptive.
And what about those accounts from the Kalapalo tribe years later? That seems significant.
It did. Initially, there were suggestions they might have been involved. But then over time, the story seemed to shift, didn't it? Other tribes were implicated instead. It shows how difficult it is to get a clear story decades later, especially relying on oral history passed down. It's a very complex web of potential interactions and motives.
Motives like?
Could have been simply protecting their land. Could have been a tragic misunderstanding over something seemingly minor. Could have been robbery, though Fawcett wasn't known for carrying lots of valuables. It's hard to say for sure.
Okay, so that's one major theory. What else falls into the likely but grim category?
Just the sheer brutality of the environment itself. Disease, starvation, an accident.
The Amazon jungle as the killer.
It was and is a relentless enemy if you're unprepared or unlucky. Malaria, yellow fever, vicious infections from minor cuts or insect bites, snake bites, contaminated water leading to dysentery. The list is long.
A simple injury could be fatal.
Absolutely. A twisted ankle, a deep cut. If it gets infected, you're in serious trouble miles from anywhere. And just getting lost in the dense, disorienting jungle. You could run out of supplies, lose your way entirely. It's terrifyingly easy to imagine how quickly things could unravel.
So those are the most likely scenarios, tragically mundane in a way, but then we move into the more, let's call them romantic theories, the ones that really capture the imagination.
Right. The stuff of legends, like the idea that Fawcett actually found Z.
He found it.
And decided to stay there voluntarily.
Yeah.
Given his belief that this city was inhabited, maybe by some peaceful, reclusive people, or even, the descendants of his imagined Atlanteans, it's a compelling image, isn't it? Finding a hidden paradise and just staying.
It is romantic. But someone as driven as Fawcett, wouldn't he have wanted to tell the world? Or at least communicate his discovery somehow, even if just to Nina or a select few? Seems unlikely he'd just disappear into it.
That's a strong counter-argument. What about the idea that he just went native?
Meaning?
That he became so disillusioned with Western society, maybe especially after the horrors of World War I, which he experienced firsthand.
Right, he fought in the trenches.
Yeah, so maybe he just decided to abandon his old life entirely and integrate into a local tribe he befriended.
And there were those stories later, weren't there? Unconfirmed tales of tall, blue-eyed white men seen living deep in the jungle with indigenous groups.
Those stories pop up, yeah. Persistent, but crucially, never verified. Just rumors, really.
Okay, so finding Z and staying, we're going native. Getting slightly more unusual now. What about the theory that Fawcett might have faked his own disappearance?
Yeah, that one gets floated occasionally.
Why would he do that? To escape debts? Societal pressures? His own fame?
Maybe, it seems.
Yeah.
A bit far-fetched, doesn't it? Especially given he took his son Jack with him.
Yeah.
Would he subject his own son to that kind of deception and hardship?
Doesn't seem likely. It stretches credibility, as you say, particularly with Jack involved.
Agreed, and then we really venture into the fringes.
Okay, prepare ourselves.
The supernatural or mystical intervention angle.
Given his interests.
Exactly. Fawcett was deeply involved in theosophy. This was a kind of blend of mystical philosophy, spiritualism, ancient wisdom. It definitely fueled his belief in a hidden, possibly spiritually advanced civilization behind Z.
So the theory is...
Well, some speculate about things like energy portals, mystical guardians protecting the sacred site of Z, this sort of thing.
Right, okay. Like something out of an Indiana Jones movie, ironically.
Pretty much. It taps into that fantasy element.
So we've gone from deadly insects and disease to potentially interdimensional jungle portals.
It's quite the spectrum of possibilities we're dealing with here.
What about just a straightforward animal attack? Jaguars, anacondas. Then Amazon has big predators.
It is possible, of course. But as we touched on earlier, the real problem with that theory is the complete lack of remains. If a jaguar or an anaconda got them, you'd usually expect some trace left behind. Bones, scraps of clothing, equipment, something, but there was nothing.
Good point.
So bringing it back down to earth. While those romantic and fringe notions are certainly more exciting, more cinematic.
They make for a better story.
They do.
Yeah.
But the stark lack of any solid evidence for them, combined with the sheer, well-documented dangers of the Amazon, it really points us back towards those more tragic, realistic explanations.
Back to the tribes or the jungle itself.
Yeah. Grand's work, as I said, leans heavily towards a fatal encounter with one of the tribes in that specific, unexplored region they entered after the Jingu. But the crucial thing is, there's no definitive proof. No smoking gun.
And it's that lack of proof, that ambiguity.
That's what keeps this mystery alive, isn't it? It leaves room for doubt, for hope, for endless speculation.
It absolutely does. And it's that enduring mystery that really fuels the whole legacy of Fawcett and the lost city of Z. It didn't end with his disappearance.
Precisely. His vanishing act wasn't the end of the story. In many ways, it was just the beginning of the legend. Think about all those search parties that followed him in.
There were loads, right?
Over 100, by some estimates. Expedition after expedition plunging back into the jungle, desperately searching for clues. And many of them met with their own disasters. People died or disappeared, looking for Fawcett.
Wow, that just adds another layer of tragedy and mystique to it all.
It really does. It's like the jungle itself was actively guarding its secrets, swallowing anyone who pried too deeply.
And you can definitely see Fawcett's influence, or at least the archetype he represents, in pop culture. The Indiana Jones connection. People always bring that up.
Yeah, it's debated how direct the influence was, but the parallels are certainly there, aren't they? The fedora, maybe the whip, the academic-turned-adventurer searching for lost artifacts in exotic, dangerous locations. The echoes feel right.
Even if it's not a one-to-one inspiration.
Exactly. And even before Indy, there was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. He was actually a friend of Fawcett's.
Really? The creator of Sherlock Holmes.
The very same. And apparently Doyle used some of Fawcett's earlier Amazonian exploration tales, reports he'd sent back before the final Z expedition, as partial inspiration for his novel The Lost World.
The one with dinosaurs on a plateau.
That's the one. That idea of a hidden primordial realm cut off from time. Fawcett's accounts help fuel that kind of public imagination about the unexplored Amazon.
And then much more recently, David Grann's book in 2009, The Lost City of Z, that really brought the whole story roaring back into the public consciousness for a modern audience, didn't it?
Absolutely. It was a bestseller for a reason. Fantastic piece of investigative journalism and storytelling.
Yeah.
And then the film adaptation that followed.
Which was beautifully shot, I thought. Really captured that atmosphere of obsession and the unforgiving nature of the jungle.
Agreed. And beyond the specific story, Fawcett himself has kind of become this archetype, hasn't he?
How so?
The symbol of the driven explorer. Maybe even the dangerously obsessed one. Pushing limits, chasing a singular goal, possibly, probably, to his own detriment and the detriment of those with him. It's a cautionary tale in some ways.
But there's a fascinating twist here, isn't there? Something relatively recent. This archaeological reassessment of the Amazon.
Yes. This is incredibly important.
Because even though Fawcett's specific vision of a monolithic, maybe Atlantean city of Z might have been romanticized.
Almost certainly was.
Recent discoveries are kind of vindicating his core belief. His fundamental idea that significant, complex civilizations did exist in the Amazon before Columbus.
This is where it gets really interesting, and it connects back to what you find fascinating, those aha moments in history.
Right.
Using technology like LiDAR.
Right.
It's basically a laser scanning system, often mounted on planes, that can see through the dense jungle canopy.
Amazing tech.
It is. And it's revealing evidence of these extensive pre-Columbian settlements. Huge earthworks, moats, causeways, road networks, evidence of large managed forests and agriculture. These so-called garden cities of the Amazon.
Garden cities.
Yeah, suggesting a much more populated and complex history in the Amazon basin than Western science previously understood or admitted. It blows the old pristine wilderness idea out of the water.
So while Z, as he imagined it, this single lost city, might still be folklore.
Probably is.
The fact that modern science is now uncovering the scale of these past Amazonian societies, that's a huge shift in our understanding, and it retroactively lends a lot more weight to Fawcett's initial hunches, doesn't it? He wasn't entirely crazy.
Not at all. He might have romanticized the details, maybe projected his own mystical ideas onto it, but his fundamental belief that there were significant lost civilizations in the Amazon, he was certainly on the right track. It's almost like a posthumous "I told you so" for him, in a way.
That's incredible. Okay, for the real history buffs listening, the ones who love the deep dives, let's get into some of the trivia, the details, the less-known aspects of this incredible story. The deep cuts.
Excellent idea. Let's kick off with Manuscript 512 again.
Right, the Portuguese document.
It wasn't some kind of ancient treasure map, as people sometimes imagine. It was actually this crumbling 18th century document found in the National Library in Rio de Janeiro.
What did it say?
It described, rather vaguely, the ruins of a stone city that had apparently been discovered after an earthquake by some Portuguese adventurers, bandeirantes, back in the 1750s. Fawcett became utterly fixated on its descriptions, even though they were pretty ambiguous, and believed it had the key to Z's location.
So it was more like a historical account than a map.
Exactly. And Fawcett himself, beyond just the tough explorer persona, he was a fascinatingly complex character. We mentioned his deep dive into theosophy and spiritualism.
Yeah, the mystical side.
He genuinely believed he had a psychic connection with his son, Jack. And he apparently consulted mediums about Z, believing it held spiritual secrets, not just archaeological ones. It adds this whole other layer to his motivations, doesn't it? It wasn't just about geographical discovery.
Absolutely. There was this whole spiritual quest element mixed in. And can you imagine being Nina Fawcett, his wife?
Must have been agony.
Not only did her husband and eldest son vanish without a trace, but Fawcett had explicitly forbidden anyone from sending rescue expeditions if he went missing for too long.
He really did. He wrote something like, If he couldn't make it out with all his experience, then no one else stood a chance, and a rescue attempt would just lead to more deaths.
Wow. A pretty stark assessment. And ultimately, tragically, maybe accurate in some ways, given what happened to some search parties.
Possibly. And that final confirmed location, Dead Horse Camp. Those coordinates we mentioned, 11 degrees 43 minutes south, 54 degrees 35 minutes west. That's the last definite pinprick on the map for them. Just picturing them there, about to step off into the complete unknown. It's a haunting thought.
It is. What about Raleigh Rimmel? He often gets overshadowed by Fawcett and Jack.
He does, and there's some sad speculation about him. Reports suggest he suffered badly from infected legs, possibly insect bites that went septic, quite early on in that final trek.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And some theories, though unproven, even suggest he might have died first, or perhaps had to be left behind somewhere, which seems to clash with Fawcett's known reputation for loyalty to his men. It's just another painful, unanswered question in this whole saga.
And that compass, I remember reading something about a compass being found years later.
Ah, yes, the theodolite compass. It was found near the territory of the Baysheri tribe back in 1933. Big news at the time.
So proof they were there.
Well, here's the crucial detail. It was later confirmed to be from one of Fawcett's previous expeditions in that general region. It had absolutely no bearing on their final disappearance in 1925. But for a while, it added another layer of confusion and false hope.
Right. Another dead end. And Fawcett's younger son, Brian, he didn't just let it go, did he?
No, he really dedicated a large part of his life trying to find out what happened to his father and brother.
Yeah.
He organized his own search expeditions into the Amazon, and he edited and published his father's journals and letters in a book called Exploration Fawcett, trying to piece together the story, uncover the truth.
Was he successful? Did he find anything?
Not definitively, and it's fair to say his work often relied on some, well, questionable sources, including information supposedly gleaned from psychic readings and mediums. So, while the book offers insight into Fawcett's mindset, its reliability as a factual account of the final expedition is often debated.
Okay. And then there's that really dramatic story about the Kalapalo bones in the 1950s. That must have seemed like a huge breakthrough.
It really did at the time. The story goes that leaders of the Kalapalo tribe told the famous Brazilian explorers, the Villas-Boas brothers, that their tribe had killed Fawcett, Jack, and Rimmel years earlier. They even supposedly showed Orlando Villas-Boas some bones they claimed were Fawcett's.
Wow.
Case closed?
Not quite. Much, much later, in the late 1990s, those bones were subjected to DNA testing. They were definitively proven not to be Percy Fawcett's.
Ah, so the Kalapalo story wasn't true. Or not entirely.
It's complicated. What's interesting is that the Kalapalo chief later gave a different, more nuanced account to David Gran during his research. He suggested that while his people hadn't killed them, they knew which tribe, a more hostile group living further east, likely was responsible. It's a powerful reminder of how difficult it is to reconstruct events from decades past, especially relying on oral traditions in a region with many different groups, languages, and complex intertribal histories.
Absolutely. But connecting back to something positive, those recent archaeological discoveries we talked about, near the Xingu River, where Fawcett was searching. Yeah, Kuyukugu and other sites.
That really is a significant piece of the modern puzzle, isn't it? Even if it doesn't solve the mystery of his disappearance.
It is, because the findings there, evidence of sophisticated urban planning, large plazas, raised causeways, fish farms, managed landscapes, right in the vicinity of where Fawcett was searching. It genuinely supports the idea that large, complex, pre-Columbian societies thrived in that part of the Amazon.
Validating his core belief.
Exactly. So while the specific lost city of Z, as Fawcett envisioned it, maybe with gold roofs and Atlantean script, might remain a myth, his underlying conviction that there was something major there, something beyond scattered villages. Well, that core belief has been powerfully validated in a way by modern archaeology. It really highlights how history isn't static. It's this continuous process of discovery and reassessment, something I know you find fascinating.
It's incredible how the story keeps evolving, even now. So, okay, for anyone listening who's now as hooked as we are and wants to delve even deeper into this whole mystery, where should they start? You've put together kind of curated curiosity cabinet for us.
Absolutely. Happy to share some resources. First and foremost, if you want the definitive modern account, you really have to read The Lost City of Z, A Tale of Deadly Obsession in the Amazon by David Gran. It's just meticulously researched, incredibly well-written, essential reading.
Got an ISBN for that, for easy finding.
Yep, it's 978-1400-078-455. Should be easy to find.
Okay, great. And for a more visual take on this story?
Definitely check out the 2016 film The Lost City of Z, directed by James Gray. Stars Charlie Hunnam as Fawcett. It's visually stunning, really captures the atmosphere, the obsession, the jungle. It's available on various streaming platforms.
Good recommendation. What if people want to get closer to Fawcett's own words, his own perspective?
Then you'll want to look for Exploration Fawcett. This is the book edited by his younger son, Brian, that we mentioned. It's basically a collection of Fawcett's own journals, letters, and expedition reports.
But with that caveat we discussed.
Exactly. Just be aware that there's some debate among historians about Brian Fawcett's editing choices and how much he might have shaped the narrative or included less reliable material. But it still offers a direct line into Fawcett's thoughts and his voice. The ISBN for that one is 978-075-381-9351.
Okay. Beyond the main book and film, any documentaries worth seeking out?
Definitely worth searching on YouTube and major streaming services. There have been quite a few documentaries made over the years about Fawcett, Z, and Amazonian exploration in general. My advice would be to look for ones that feature David Gran or reputable historians and archaeological experts discussing the case and the newer findings.
Good tip. And for the really serious researchers out there, the academic types.
Well, the motherlode of primary source material, letters, maps, reports, is held in the Royal Geographical Society archives in London. They supported some of Fawcett's work. Their website is rgs.org, and they may have some digitized resources available online, or information on accessing the archives in person if you're really dedicated.
rgs.org. Got it. What about connecting with other enthusiasts, seeing what current theories are being debated online?
Sure. Online forums like Reddit can be interesting places for that. Subreddits like Run Resolve Mysteries or History often have threads discussing the Fawcett case. You'll find all sorts of theories debated there, from the plausible to the totally wild.
But maybe take it with a grain of salt.
Definitely approach those forums with a critical eye. Lots of speculation flies around. But they can be interesting places to see what captures the public imagination. Good search terms would be Percy Fawcett, Lost City of Z, and Fawcett disappearance.
Okay. And finally, to stay up to date with the archaeological side, the discoveries that are actually changing our understanding of the Amazon's past.
For that, you'll want to keep an eye on reports about Amazonian archaeology in reputable science and nature publications. Think outlets like Nature, Science, and National Geographic. They often cover the latest fieldwork and LiDAR discoveries that shed new light on the ancient civilizations of the Amazon, the very thing Fawcett was searching for in his own way.
Excellent. So, as our historic road trip exploring Fawcett and Z comes towards its end, we're really left standing before this enduring mystery, aren't we?
We really are.
Percy Fawcett and the Lost City of Z. It's clearly so much more than just a missing persons case from long ago. It's a story that just keeps sparking debate, fascination, obsession even. Hopefully you listening have found this deep dive into the history books and uncovered sources as captivating as we have.
Absolutely. It touches on so many themes. Ambition, definitely. The consuming, maybe dangerous power of obsession, the irresistible allure of the unknown, and the profound impact these vast, unexplored, challenging places have on the human psyche.
And those huge, lingering questions. Did he find his city? What really was his ultimate fate? And Jack's and Raleigh's, it feels pretty likely we'll never have those definitive answers, doesn't it?
I suspect you're right. And maybe that's part of its enduring power. The not knowing, it leaves space for the imagination.
So a final thought to leave our listeners with, something to mull over.
Well, maybe consider this. How does our ongoing fascination with these lost civilizations, these unsolved historical mysteries, like Fawcett's, how does that reflect our own deep-seated desires? Maybe for meaning, for adventure, for discovery, in a world that often feels increasingly mapped, known, and maybe a little mundane. Perhaps the real Z, the real lost city, isn't actually a place marked on some crumbling map.
Right.
But maybe it's that persistent, sometimes dangerous, but ultimately very human drive to seek what lies just beyond the horizon, to push into the unknown.